Today, we're going to talk about something that changed an entire industry's approach to workplace safety. This is the story of a construction site where everyone saw the warning signs, but no one took action until it was almost too late. This isn't just about one place or one moment. It's about a lesson that applies to workplaces everywhere. It started like any other project, a mid-sized construction site in the suburbs, building a new commercial complex. The company had been in business for 20 years with a decent safety record. The crew was experienced, the supervisors had their certifications. On paper, everything looked perfect, but there was one problem that kept appearing in the daily reports, a problem so common that people stopped paying attention to it. That problem was housekeeping, specifically the accumulation of materials, tools, and debris throughout the worksite. Now, I know what you're thinking. Housekeeping. That doesn't sound like a serious risk. And that's exactly what everyone on that site thought too. This is the risk no one took seriously. From week one, the site superintendent noticed materials piling up. Wooden pallets stacked in walkways, extension cords running across pathways, scrap metal left near active work zones, tools scattered across floors. Each individual item seemed harmless. Each violation seemed minor. The safety inspector would write it up. The supervisor would promise to address it. The crew would clean up one area, only for another to become cluttered the next day. It became a cycle, a routine, something everyone acknowledged but no one truly prioritized. Why? Because housekeeping violations rarely lead to immediate consequences. Unlike working at heights without fall protection or operating equipment without proper training, poor housekeeping doesn't feel dangerous in the moment. It's easy to dismiss. The project manager was focused on deadlines. They were 3 weeks behind schedule due to weather delays. The pressure was mounting. When faced with a choice between spending an hour cleaning up or an hour making progress on construction, the choice seemed obvious: keep building, clean up later. This is where we need to understand something important about human psychology. It's called risk normalization. When we're exposed to a hazard repeatedly without experiencing negative consequences, our brain starts to categorize that hazard as safe. Every day, workers walked past cluttered areas. Every day, nothing bad happened. Every day, the risk felt less real. The brain is efficient. It wants to save energy, so it stops sounding alarm bells for things that seem routine. This happens in all kinds of situations. Think about texting while driving. The first time feels risky, but after doing it dozens of times without incident, it starts to feel normal, safe even. The risk hasn't changed, but our perception of it has. On this construction site, the same thing was happening. Poor housekeeping had become normalized. It was just how things were on this project. Then came the moment that changed everything. A delivery of materials arrived during a busy afternoon. The forklift operator was rushing to unload everything before the end of shift. Materials were placed wherever there was space, blocking several emergency exit routes. That same afternoon, a small electrical issue occurred in one of the temporary power panels. It wasn't a major problem, just some smoke. The automatic systems kicked in immediately. There was no fire, no real emergency. But when the evacuation alarm sounded as a precaution, something became very clear very quickly. The exit routes were blocked. Workers had to navigate around materials, climb over equipment, and search for alternative paths. What should have taken 60 seconds took nearly 4 minutes. The safety officer stood outside, watching workers emerge, confused and delayed. and realized something crucial. They had been one real emergency away from a serious situation. If there had been actual smoke filling the building, if there had been a reason to evacuate quickly, those blocked exits could have had severe consequences. The project was temporarily halted. An internal review began. What they discovered was over the previous 6 weeks, there had been 87 housekeeping violations documented. 87, and yet work had continued without interruption. The violations were noted, filed, and largely forgotten. The review team also discovered something else. 5 workers had reported near-miss incidents related to tripping hazards. 3 more had mentioned concerns about blocked pathways. None of these reports had triggered significant action. The company brought in an external safety consultant to provide an objective assessment. The consultant's report was clear. The site had developed a culture where minor violations were acceptable, where convenience was prioritized over procedure, where everyone assumed someone else would handle the cleanup. Here's what makes this story important. This wasn't an isolated incident. Studies show that housekeeping-related incidents account for a significant percentage of workplace injuries across all industries. Slips, trips, and falls are among the most common causes of lost work time. The construction industry, in particular, faces unique challenges. Multiple contractors working in the same space, constantly changing work zones, materials and equipment moving throughout the day. It's a dynamic environment that requires constant attention to organization, but the lesson extends far beyond construction. Warehouses face similar issues with inventory and equipment. Manufacturing facilities deal with scrap material and tools. Even offices can develop clutter that creates hazards. The underlying issue is universal. When a risk seems minor, we tend to defer addressing it. We have more important things to focus on until that minor risk becomes a major problem. After the evaluation, the construction company made significant changes. They didn't just implement new rules, they changed their entire approach. First, they established a dedicated housekeeping schedule. Every work zone had assigned times for cleanup, built into the project timeline. It wasn't something to do when there's time. It was part of the work itself. Second, they created a simple visual management system. Green zones were clear and safe. Yellow zones needed attention within 2 hours. Red zones required immediate action. Anyone could designate a red zone, and work would stop until it was addressed. Third, and perhaps most importantly, they changed how they talked about housekeeping. It wasn't about following rules or avoiding violations. It was about respecting the next person who would work in that space. It became cultural, not just procedural. The project manager started holding 5-minute daily meetings, focused entirely on site organization. Supervisors began recognizing and rewarding good housekeeping practices. The entire mindset shifted. Within 3 weeks, the change was remarkable. The site was more organized. Workers reported feeling more comfortable and focused. Productivity actually improved because people spent less time searching for tools or navigating around obstacles. More importantly, the near-miss reporting increased. When people felt that their safety concerns would be taken seriously, they were more willing to speak up. The culture had shifted from compliance to genuine care. The project was completed 2 months later, on schedule and without any significant incidents. But the real impact extended further. The company adopted these practices across all their sites. Other contractors noticed and began asking questions. The local safety association used the case as a teaching example. So, what can we learn from this story? The risk no one took seriously turned out to be one of the most important risks to address. The lesson is simple but profound. Small risks, left unaddressed, can create big problems. Not necessarily because they're individually dangerous, but because they create conditions where larger risks become more likely. They establish patterns of accepting hazards. They normalize circumstances that should never be normal. Whether you work in construction, an office, a warehouse, or anywhere else, the principle applies. Don't dismiss the small things. The cluttered workspace, the blocked pathway, the extension cord running across the floor. These aren't minor inconveniences. They're potential problems waiting for the wrong moment to matter. The construction site in this story got lucky. They had their wake-up call during a minor incident, not a major one. They had the opportunity to change before anyone was hurt. Not every workplace gets that chance. That's why this story matters. That's why we need to take all risks seriously, even the ones that seem routine or minor. Thanks for watching. If this story made you think about risks in your own workplace or environment, consider sharing it. Sometimes the most important safety lessons come from the risks we almost overlook.